Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at our task force meeting. We have an agenda that's linked in the calendar invitation, and I wanted to first get started with just a quick welcome. And I'm scanning. I don't see any new members on here that need any introductions, but I think we're okay. Checking. Wonderful. No, I think we're good. So looking at the beginning of the agenda, I wanted to go ahead and get started with the first part of the agenda, which is essentially a big thank you to Kelly for getting some information so we know that it was a tight turnaround, but I think we'll have enough to at least get us started, and then certainly we'll allow for some time for you all to review the data, and then the next time or in between we'll be able to get more questions. So I'm going to first start with Kelly to share any updates around RICS, and then the next item around Hopkins. Excuse me, yeah. Oh, I think you're muted right now, Kelly.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this evening. As she stated, I was able to get the capacity numbers that were requested, and so those are attached for you all to review. It's a very large document, so it's worth just having some nighttime reading sometime because it's very comprehensive. But to give you guys updates on RICS, so RICS, the new site, I was actually out there today. It's about 40% complete. And so we're pushing for substantial completion to be on November 30th of this year. We're going to take the time from December to the first week of January to kind of fine tune, tighten up, punch work out, move furniture, all those good things. So the bulk of like 99% of everything will be done. The only things that will still be worked on while students are beginning to attend class again in the spring will be some minor work in the parking lot area and some minor work on the landscape area out in front where some of the utility boxes are. So there's nothing that should be interfering with instruction or student and staff safety while they're on site in January. As far as Hopkins goes, so Hopkins, we have resolved some of the problems that have been occurring at Lila Bringhurst with regard to the HVAC and heating and cooling. My last update today, which I haven't had an opportunity to notify the superintendents, all systems were working and all rooms were cooled with the exception of one. So we were very happy to have the contractor fix those problems. And so we're crossing our fingers that we have no more issues with regard to Hopkins occupying Lila Bringhurst at this time. Hopkins, on back to the existing campus, that construction is moving along really well. We have gotten quite a bit of work done over the last 2 weeks. If you all happen to drive by there and take a glance, it's unfortunately you can't see like a lot of the work from the street, but if you are facing the front of the school and directly to your left, all of the underground foundations and footings for the new 2-story structure are in. They were poured on Friday, and so they're curing, and so we're gonna start seeing some structural steel come to the site pretty soon. As far as the spaces within the core of the campus, so buildings A through F will be completed and ready for occupancy in December. And then the portable classrooms are completed and ready now. And so what we are finishing up between now and December is just making sure paths of travel are completed and secured off, doing some additional roofing work. There's some HVAC systems that are going to be repaired and or replaced between now and the end of the year. And we will continue to do the new construction of the new facility, 2-story structure that's going to be in front of the parking lot. So there's lots of stuff still going on, but good progress. So far, no delays, yay. And the weather has been holding out for us, so we're able to get a lot of work done without having any inclement weather. So But that's the update on those two. I hope I was able to answer pertinent questions, but of course, if there's others, please feel free to ask.
Are there any questions about the RICS update or the Lila Brinkhurst update? Okay, I don't see any. Okay, so let's.
I have a
Go
question.
ahead, Brian. Yes.
So the RICS site is expected to be completed in December. Is that right? And students will start class there in January. How much space would that free up?
It is my understanding that 5 classrooms will be freed up at their current location and 1 additional classroom at the current Glankler site will be moved over. So a total of 6 will be moving to the new renovated space.
Thank you,
So,
Chloe.
so that's 5 at Blakeout and 1 at Glenker.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. So let's move on to, I'm going to ask Christy Rocha to share the next piece of information.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to share with all of you the latest numbers, current programs in both SDI and MIP. Let me get that. I'm going to
Do you want me to share it,
present.
Christy?
Mine.
No, I don't mind. Okay, let me.
Thank you.
Like I learned how to use Zoom. Now I have to learn how to learn how to use. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Okay.
Okay, so what you'll see is our current enrollment as of 9/17/21. Please note a few changes. We are constantly adding students to both programs. So there are a few changes, but nothing significant in the sense that, additional 30 students or something like that. So this kind of gives us a ballpark figure of where what is our current capacity in both SDI and MIP. So what you'll see in this graph is essentially our 3 sites that have our SDI strand at Blakeout, Grimmer, and Vallejo Mill. What our current enrollment is based on those 3 sites. And then what you'll see to the left with the grade levels, so that you'll see K all the way to 6th grade, what you see in the parentheses is the maximum class for each grade level. So for example, there is a class ratio for kindergarten that is 24:1. When you get into 1st and 2nd and 3rd grade, the class size goes up to 28. And then 4, 5, and 6 goes to 30:1. So just that to note that. So when we look at our current enrollment as of now, what we'll see is that the numbers fluctuate from grade level to grade level. And then what you'll see at the far right is the number of classrooms that we would need based on the current enrollment. So I'll give you a few moments to take a look at this, but what you'll see is that essentially based on current enrollment as of 9/17, and as I noted, changes, but nothing that would change the total number of classrooms. In order to unify the SDI program, we would need a total of 16 classrooms. That does not include any prep teachers, that does not include any other services. This is just solely purely classrooms. So I'll give you a moment to take a look at that.
Christy, I have a question. So
Yes.
when you say rooms needed for unification, is that 2 additional rooms in addition to what you currently have to house the current enrollment? Or is that 2 additional if you add a second track? I'm just a little confused.
Would mean the total number of rooms. So we would need a total of 2 classrooms for kindergarten at a unified site.
Okay, got it.
Thank you for that question.
Mm-hmm.
Our total enrollment as of now in the program is 372, I believe, is what was on the slide. Yeah, 372.
Sorry.
Any other questions on SDI before I go into MIP and taking a look at our enrollment? Okay, next slide then, please, Letty. Okay, so the same notion we'll see in the MIP enrollment. Again, this is based on 917, and there's been some changes as well, but nothing that would throw off the enrollment numbers. So same thing on the far left side, what we'll see is the max class ratio for each grade level, and the number of students at both Azaveda and Blakehow. And then you'll see the current enrollment for kinder all the way to 6th grade. Again, looking at based on this information, the number of rooms that would need to be unified is on the far right. And what you'll see is as of 2nd grade all the way to 6th grade, there is that star that notes that this does not include the additional classes that we would need based on the addition of the MIP strand at Blakehow. The next slide will show how many classrooms we will need once that goes all the way to 6th grade. So I'll give you a moment to take a look at that. Our current enrollment for the MIP program is 418. Any questions on this before we go to projections for what once the MIP strand at Blakehow continues to grow all the way to 6th grade? Okay, next slide then. So this is looking at a projection all the way till 25, 26. And that will show how many total classrooms we will need once the of the new MIP strand goes to moves its way up, right? So currently in the 21-22 school year, we would need 16 classes. We're going to be adding as each year progresses. So 22 to add additional classes, so that would be of 24. We would need a total of 18. What you'll see the difference is that is the intent that Hopkins will be converted. Students will no longer be our elementary sites. So you'll see that the 23 and 23-24 school year, the classrooms for 25, and again, additional classes, we now need a total of 20, and then finalizing or finally at the 25-26, again with 6th grade moving off into the middle school, we would need a total of 22 classrooms. So that is projecting what we would need based on the additional growth in the MIP program. We will eventually need 22 classes for vacation. Any questions there?
Christy, I have a question. So the kindergarten classes, are we assuming that they just need one class because it's AM PM division, or are we assuming that these kids will take two classes?
It is assuming a current model that kindergarten is an AM PM model. So that's why you
So
see
they will
only
occupy
two
one
classes.
classroom.
Yes, you can have two classes that occupy one classroom. So essentially it's four groups of students, but you only need two classrooms because of the AM PM that
Correct.
we offer in our kinder program.
And this is reflected in the chart.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions?
So we have no projected growth for SDI, even like speculative growth for SDI. Should it happen just based on any demographic data or anything like that at the three current sites?
That's we've always tried to predict that, and since it's a program of choice, that is a little difficult to predict. I will say this year our numbers are a little bit lower in general at the kinder than what we are normally expecting. Normally our classes are more closer to the class ratio size. So this year is, I would say, an outlier. And so definitely that would be something to consider around. This is based on current numbers, but looking for ways as well to.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Christy. And you all have this chart as well that it's in our agenda. So the next item we have in terms of data sets, and it's a big, thick report, so we're going to let you all have a time to look at that outside of the meeting. But we were able to, hot off the press, get the enrollment capacity reports for the schools. That's an attachment. What I'm going to propose is that after this meeting, you all will have time to look at it, ask questions about it, and I will ask for you all to send me questions. And if we can get the answers before, that will be our goal, to get the answers before our next meeting. But if not, certainly we will have another opportunity to ask more questions at the November meeting. But I want to let you all to have some time to really look at it and unpack it. But please feel free to email me the questions, and then I will farm it out to, if it's to Christy or to Kelly, and we'll get that so that everybody gets the same information, and then we'll put it out for all. So at this point, I want to kind of pause and ask, is there, thinking about other data sets that's needed? This would be a time for you to think about it. And if you don't have any ideas about it now, you can certainly email me. But is there another set of data that will be important as we move forward with our planning and decisions?
Quick question. Is the demographic projections, the latest one, is it still the 2020 projection that we had?
So I don't think we have, I think this is not the latest one. Is that, Kelly, are you involved with that out of the business department with the new demographic report? I don't think that's out yet, correct?
No, actually, they're working on that right now, and I do not believe they will be finished with that until either late November or early December. That's my understanding based on the conversation I had last week with Associate Superintendent Pfeiffer.
Okay, so the best information we have right now is the report from last year.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and then enrolling our current numbers. So yes,
Got it.
thank you for that. That's a great question. Patty?
Yes, so one data point that has been discussed, at least since I've been on the task force, in terms of the demographics, is, you know, we have in SDI, there's such a large like social disparity with with our families from at the three sites. So one of them that always came about is trying to have an understanding of where our families are coming from, given that distance and like a centralized location was a key point. And so it'll be interesting to me for us to consider that where, I mean, we have families are coming from unions. We have some inter-district families as well. We have some that, you know, travel pretty much north of Fremont and outside the area. Just so that we understand kind of if there's any like high concentrations of those that are currently in the program that are coming, and also as we consider transportation possibilities, etc. So I'll be interested to learn those points, those data points.
It's a great, yeah. So we can look to see how many are outside of the district, and then also are there concentrations in certain parts of the city based on their home school, let's say. And then
Correct.
this program, okay.
Mhm.
Yes, we can work with student support services to see if we can capture that data. It's good.
And the same for MIP.
I was going to say, yes, absolutely, for both. Anything else? Okay, so again, if you think of something, email me, and then we can work with the right department to make sure we can get that into your hands, and really help us as we move forward. So with that said, I'm going to look at the agenda and move on to the next item. And the next item, I'm going to have Christy share just some background. I think it'll be good for all of us to just kind of renormalize what we were thinking about. I know some of you have been here from the beginning, but it's good for us all to have this shared understanding about the benefits, considerations for unification, and then reestablishing that rationale for unification. So Christy, do you want me to share my screen?
Sure. Okay, thank you. So I'm sure some of you have, Melissa can help me with this component of the agenda. And so this was just to kind of establish why years ago we were even looking at unification. And there were—
Excuse me, Christy, my apologies. Was this a presentation for this one as well?
we're going to do the Padlet, but that comes later. So
That's later, so I'll wait. Thank you. Sorry
No.
about that.
That's okay. So years ago, when we were first looking at what were kind of the next steps for the SDI program at the time, and you know, the need for unification. And so there were some major themes that were kind of the starting points or the jumping points for unification. The central focus was around strengthening the program, right? One of the challenges that faces is that you have strands at each program, and really being able to pull resources at one school site. So that was the premise, was around strengthening the program. So within that would be kind of a strand out of that was, again, pulling resources, being able to have streamline those resources at the sites. The other big component was around teachers being able to collaborate with one another. One of, again, the challenges as a former SDI teacher in the program, there's only one teacher per grade level. And so having the ability to easily collaborate with your colleagues, again, was one of those things that was discussed around unification. The other was around being able to follow the model to fidelity. We have the 90-10 model for each of our programs, and being able to have an entire school community where that 90-10 model was being implemented to fidelity, which included prep teachers, the librarian, the custodians, the staff working in the cafeteria, the yard workers, all of those things, right? All of the supporting staff would all kind of embrace the bilingualism and really utilizing that model to fidelity. So that was another kind of big push at the time for the need for unification. And then the other component was around the support of building a community where parents were able to have a strong PTA or PTO that supports the immersion program, having a community that really embraces, and not that it does happen at the other sites, but again, all united around the theme of bilingualism and biliteracy. So those were kind of the themes. Melissa, Patty, or Vicky, am I missing anything that were kind of the original thought process around the unification?
Those are the same things I was thinking too. So yeah.
Yeah, everything that you mentioned kind of, you know, it's something that just resonates with everyone, and it's been years. And as we continue to point that out, there's still nothing on, there's no effort being made to kind of encourage that. And so I feel like, you know, and I'm speaking as a parent, I just know that without having any teacher representatives here from the other sides or a principal, it is just kind of hard to get what's behind the scenes in terms of staffing and collaboration. But as a parent, like, you know, we don't know the parents from other schools, and there's really no one for us to reach out to, because we don't have that back from administration or teachers. And so it's really hard to kind of see ourselves as a mere image of MIP, because we're not. And so we can't seem to get there even after 3 years. And it is my experience, and I feel strongly about this, that as we keep, you know, just talking about this over and over and over, we're just losing momentum. So we're never going to see, I mean, SDI and MIP are the crown jewel for the district. And so it should be like a top priority. And that's what's said all the time. But I feel as a parent, it's important for me to see what other schools are doing to enhance the program so that we can do this together. We can't do this with just me sitting here and one other teacher that's SDI. So as to why they're not part of this task force, or even the principal forum, let's say Vallejo Mill or other teachers, I feel like at this point, SDI is got to take a break and then reconvene when we do have a site that is a possibility. Because honestly, it's just reinventing the wheel over and over, and we're losing people. The reason why you see the lowest kinder is because of that. Like, there's nothing there for us to look forward to other than slowly just having like the lowest enrollment possible, to the point that the program will just disappear. So while we keep talking about the need for unification, we already all know that. We know what's important. But as a parent, I need to see more from the district and administration in order for me to do my job as a parent representative. I have nothing to show to my parents and families or the students, you know. I have nothing.
I kind of agree with Patty of why our numbers have dropped so much, because it has been so long. I mean, I remember when my son started the program 7 years ago, we had a waiting list to get into kinder at Blake Howe. And now the classrooms are what, 16? I mean, it's great for class sizes, but it's not great for our program because it's not growing. And I think all this back and forth and no movement has caused that distrust in our community. And two, I think also it is the pandemic. The pandemic has affected the Hispanic community, Latino community much stronger than the other communities, and people are scared to go to school. So, you know, that plus the back and forth with, we're going to this school, we're going to that school, we're going to that school, is really negatively affecting us. So if it's affecting us so much at this point, what's the discussion? Is the discussion to, let's keep forcing this unification, or like we don't do anything until the district gives us a site? I mean, that's pretty much it. Like, we need, there's no more surveying the community. There's no more none of that, because we all know that we just need a site. And until the district can provide that to us, then there's no point of having us part of this joint task force. I mean,
We
like,
have no momentum, honestly. If I'm being honest, we have no momentum right now.
I think, the purpose of this part of the agenda, and I'll be candid, because what I, we have the commitment of everyone that we are moving towards unification. And I had heard from some folks that let's go ahead and reestablish the need, because, this year I think was just tough when we had, certainly there was the staff, choices and staff recommendation about trying to unify by unifying to 2 sites versus 3. And we know where we are with that. I totally get that. But I think I wanted to make sure that we had reestablished that there's still not that idea that to stay at separate sites. And I appreciate the clarification. It's because once we have the site, then we can do that work. And so I definitely appreciate that. I want to hear from Judy from the perspective of the site leader to hear a little bit more about unification. And then we're going to go to a quick activity and get to our next steps, because I think it'll be important for number 4 as well, number 4 on the agenda, as we start to kind of build that foundation.
There's 2 things that come to mind. One is the collaboration, incredibly important. All 3 sites, I'm sure, have the collaboration between SDI and English, but the Spanish immersion teachers are on their own. So they're creating their own materials. They're searching for, supplemental materials. Even though the district has done an absolutely great job trying to get everything in Spanish, there's still a lot, and Vicki can talk to this, a lot of work outside of school. If they had collaboration, they would be able to each take on some of the tasks that are required. So that's number 1. Number 2, actually there's number 3. The families that we have had in the past, I think Melissa touched on it, the economic status of our community has changed tremendously. And I can speak from Grimmer, in the 12 years that I've been there, the lower income families that are native Spanish speakers can no longer afford to be in Fremont. So we're losing that authentic Spanish speaker. Most of the kids that are, at least at Grimmer, I can only speak at Grimmer, coming in are not bilingual. They're English only students, which makes it much more difficult to teach. And I think the Mandarin program has that same issue. And then there was a third thing that went in my brain and then let out. It was important too, but just the collaboration and the community changing, I think, is the most important thing. And I think Patty hit on, we don't know each other from the other sites. So the communication between the 3 sites is pretty much non-existent at this point. We did have good momentum with everybody coming together when we first started talking about this. So I know what the other thing was. The staffing, Carol has also had this problem. Finding bilingual teachers is increasingly difficult. So if we do not unify, and I know Carol has the same concern with the Mandarin, and Jose and Rosalinda, we're not going to be able to find staff. And continuing the program is contingent on that. So those were the 3 things that I would like to add.
Thank you, everyone. So that was kind of where we started years ago. And so just before we get into the activity of what are things to consider and what are the benefits to unification, I would like to bring our MIP representatives in the fold in this conversation as well, as to what, from the perspective of MIP, would be the positive impacts of unification, or what are the things that the community is saying around unification. So I'll open that up.
Yeah, Keith is traveling internationally today, so I guess I'm the only MIP representative. For MIP, I think if you think about it purely from a program perspective, unification just makes sense. Teachers are in one location, coordinated. We have a community that's centralized instead of breaking up to two different locations, easier to support. Um, um, so unification definitely makes sense. But of course, it also means a major disruption to the existing families that are settled, that have already settled at Azaveda and beginning to settle at Blake. So I think for MIP, if there's a unification site that can accommodate the program's growth, that would definitely be a long-term interest. Um, um, I think for the parents, there's the short-term disruption issue that we need to balance. So it's that's I would say that's a prevailing sentiment among the MIP families.
And I have to agree with what Judy said in regard to collaboration. Jose and I are concerned with the fact that we only have our 4 teachers over at Blake Cal. While that's wonderful that we're growing, it also is much more difficult for the Mandarin immersion teachers to continue that teamwork that they've been doing for so long at Azaveda. And I think May and Katie, who are both here also as teachers, could also probably add to that, because May is in the first grade team and 2 of her team members are at Blake Cal, and they can't just walk down the hall and have a conversation. So.
Yeah, this is very true, Mrs. Diamond. This year we have 2 new teachers in Blake Cal, and there are so much Michelle and I, another first grade teacher, would like to share with them, teach them like how to use the program, how to calculate the minutes, do 20% English and 80% Chinese. But since we are on different site, it is very difficult for us to collaborate because we are so busy with our own class, the parents, our own schedule. So I have to set up a text message group only with 4 of us, so they can, anytime they have any question, they just bring it up, and anytime I have time, then I can answer the question. But I always see that question after 9:30, sometimes at 12 a.m. So it's really hard to collaborate.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. We have a Padlet, and you all have access to it. So I've been jotting down notes as to the things that we're hearing, but please feel free to add to that in the Padlet. Everybody should have access, and so you can jot down if there's anything else that comes to your mind as far as benefits and any considerations around the unification process. And I will then let you take the next part.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for that. Again, it may seem to some of you, this is laying the foundation and we're hoping to again gain that momentum. So for number 4, this next piece is really to kind of start to think about how are we going to get more input from others. I know last time some of you, I should say MIP has a very strong way of communicating with the parents. And I know not even all parents may participate, for a large majority. With the SDI, not so much. It's at individual sites, and it, we need to be able to support so that we get input from all, because as you are all the representatives for the folks that aren't here tonight. So what we thought we would do is to just start to have some ideas around how are we going to communicate what we're doing. Number 1, we're live streaming. Number 2, the videos will be preserved. Agendas are there, but we want to be able to have tools to have more information as we move forward in this work. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of start to brainstorm with you all really what that would look like. And so if you all click on that, number 4, and I'm going to try to share my screen and talk also because I can't see you all. oh, excuse me. Let me see. And so the purpose of this next part will be for us to build a tool and our next steps as we start to brainstorm how we will get more input from the MIP and SDI community members. So we're not going to take a long time to do this, just literally 5 minutes. And we ask you to, do you see this little, you can click there, but essentially you're just typing, just brainstorm ideas here of how we're going to get input from a larger group of folks. I'm going to give you all just a few minutes to do that right now. Christy, do you want to do an example in there and kind of show us how to? Okay. And feel free to add a comment if it's something that you agree with. Feel free to add a comment to what someone else wrote.
So where do I do that? Oh, okay, I see. Oh, okay, got it.
Okay, one more minute. Okay, let's stop sharing. Oops. There we go. And please know that the Padlet will stay open if you want to add more information to it later. I wanted to share the screen so we can capture it and have it on the video as well, and so folks can take a look at that as well. So I saw survey on there, and I'll tell you something. What I appreciate about Fremont Unified is that oftentimes with surveys, we get the quiet voices who honestly are very busy or are, have a lot going on, but really truly care about this. And we get a very high response on surveys because folks can do it at their own time. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about and to hear from all of you is, from this group on a survey that the district could send out to really help to inform our decisions and our recommendations to the board. I'll give you an example. One of the things as we move towards unification to kind of think about is when we move to unification, should we consider the idea of grandfathering in some of the upper grades to perhaps finish the year at a site before we move the whole program? Just something that's out there as well. We may have some data by then as to, I think it was I forgot who brought it up, if it was Patty or Melissa, about where do families live? And so if we know that we have a high concentration of families who live in the Blake Howe area who go to the program, that's going to be very important information to share with the community and to really get their reaction, as we start to really pin down. And then we also know that our board is going to be making a decision around the use of LILA for next year. But if things move forward and after our board makes a decision, we know that there will be that possibility of LILA as a site. And perhaps we can start to kind of take the temperature of the community as it relates to, as we start to see what schools have the capacity to really unify all of the programs. I mean, I can tell you right now that at first blush, looking at the data, and I did not have very much time to look at it, but I know that with LILA, for example, I don't foresee that there would be the capacity for both the SDI and the MIP and the neighborhood to be at LILA. So that would be a consideration we have to look at as we make recommendations to the board. We also know that with the update from Kelly, Rick's moving forward will allow for some space. And I think we heard from Brian, how many rooms is that going to free up? So there is a possibility of Blake Howe being able to hold, more than likely, unifying one of the programs. So, and we have not as a group dug deep into the data, but what I'm thinking is, if I can start to kind of hear from you all as to what would be important to put in a survey to the community, both the SDI and the MIP community, leaving in some blanks for, as we start to kind of solidify options that we can share. And then also I would want to share the survey with our board so that they're aware as to what we're looking at. Those are just some of my first thoughts, to get input from you all as to what the survey would have. Let staff start to kind of look at some draft questions. I could get feedback from our board as well, but then for the next meeting, I can bring a draft survey that you all can look at as well. And I see Judy has her hand up.
Just really quickly, I think another thing that needed to be considered, because I think the board would be interested, is, if the program leaves Blake, Vallejo, Miller, Grimmer, how many students are going to be remaining? And I can tell you right now, Grimmer would have 182 students if the program left. So I just want to put that out there because that's something to consider in the future.
What would be something, thank you, Patty, go ahead.
Can we include a do nothing?
Tell me more.
Do nothing. Just leave us where we're at for a while.
So the question of, do we really want to unify is
Well, it's
the,
not a question of where we really want to unify. It's just, I think right now, in this very moment, I think with kind of the vibe, at least from what I hear from parents, knowing that a lot of our first graders and a lot of our kinders at Vallejo Mill in the program are completely clueless that this is in the works, just because they're new to campus, right? And they're just getting familiar with what's kind of the operation and what's going on in there. But I think a do nothing, it has to be an option for now.
Would anybody like to speak on that? And I want to, you know, for me, I'm getting a little disconnect because we just had this conversation about the power of unification, and please know that I also know that many programs across California aren't necessarily in one school. They certainly are spread throughout districts and all of that. But would anybody like to speak to that?
The only reason I say that, if I may, is just because from the survey data and the town hall meeting that we held when we were just SDI Task Force, one of the comments was, you know, we didn't have all this demographic data and whatnot, but it's just, until we have a site, then let's sit down and talk. Until we have a site that we can make it work, it's not about, like, you know, moving pieces like a puzzle here and there and see if we fit in or if we don't. It's like, we've done that. It's you have a site for us, let's talk on how we can make it work, who goes in and at what time. And I'm only saying that from the town hall information that we had, and from the survey data that we collected, and from the room parent information that we collected from the parents. And I don't know if Dr. Rocha has that. I know I have photos from the town hall meeting from the input that was given, but I'm pretty sure the same is going to come back.
Victoria.
I was just gonna echo kind of the end of what Patty said, is like how she said do nothing. If we're not gonna do it right, then I agree. Like, I want it to be at one side. I don't want to be moving all over the place as a teacher, packing up and moving here and there while the optimal situation arises, you know. So I can see why she would say, you know, do nothing if the right options aren't available.
Larry?
I
I'm sorry, Melissa, just a second. Larry raised his hand and then you're next.
I just wanted to share that one of the things that the community has looked at and the board has looked at is the amount of students. And if we continue to have low class size, when a time when we have to be looking at cutting our budget, you're going to get something forced on you if you're not already prepared with options. And one of the reasons that we have this task force is to look at options. If the enrollment keeps dropping, the board won't be able to defend sustaining a program that has 12 kids in a class. So by moving forward with options now, you're giving yourself actually more options in the future. So by taking advantage of this time to look at what could be, is going to put you in the best seat for being able to pick a choice and being able to be an active participant. Because it's very difficult when everybody is asking for special programs. And I'm not talking about this as special, but AP classes or whatever, and we're not letting anyone have classes under a certain number. So we want to do all we can to be able to defend the program.
Thank you. Melissa.
So I kind of want to just touch on what Judy was saying about, like, if the program leaves, then she's only left with 182 students. So many years ago, a lot of Blake Howe parents were also angry that the SDI was leaving to Melendez because it was going to negatively affect them with their prep teachers. So it doesn't matter what option we choose, it's going to negatively affect any school. Like if we leave Vallejo Mill, then the Vallejo Mill students are going to get affected. They currently don't even have a science prep teacher. I mean, if we leave Grimmer, the same thing. They're going to be reduced. They're going to get cut their prep teachers or other programs. So I mean, it does affect whether we stay or whether we go. If we stay, what Larry says might happen. Like our numbers keep dwindling and our program might be cut. So, but I mean, I guess at this point, what Patty is saying and what Victoria was kind of touching on is that like we're just kind of stuck at this point. Our program is suffering because unification hasn't happened. But then at the same time, if we stay, it's going to suffer even more. So we're just kind of set up to fail at this point because the parents don't really want to move until we have a site. We have to be at one site, but it's going to take many, many, many years for us to get a site. So what do we do? Like, I don't like that. To me, it's kind of, I don't, it's not a waste of time. It's been 7 years of my life here that I've been sitting here and nothing has happened. So that's what I'm just trying, like, I don't understand what the next steps are if there's no physical location for us to go. And like, if Lila, house MIP and SDI can go somewhere else, that's fine, but it's still gonna negatively affect Blake Howe, Grimmer, or Vallejo Mills. Like, we have to make a decision as a task force and stick to it because it doesn't do anything. We're just going round and round in circles. And yeah, like, I'm sorry, if we unify, then it's gonna affect Grimmer, or it's gonna affect Blake Howe. And we're just gonna have to deal with it and be like, if the parents uproar because they're gonna lose their science, and be like, sorry, this is the decision we made, and stick with it and not be bent by parents complaining or teachers complaining. Because we have to do something because we're going to get affected negatively, both whether our program unifies or not.
Thank you. Judy.
Really, very quickly, I was just thinking it from a budget standpoint. I agree completely with you, Melissa. We need to unify this program. I was just thinking from a budgetary situation. We need, you're not going to run a school with Blake Howe, Vallejo Mill, or Grimmer with 182 students.
Okay, so let's, I think this, thank you all. This actually does help. It sounds messy, but it's actually helping, I think, as we're moving forward to clarify. So what we would see on this survey, and I'm looking at the clock at the same time, but I want to make sure I hear from MIP as well, and anyone else that had ideas about what to include on this survey.
I think we ought to ask parents, like, would you remain in the program if you were relocated somewhere? Because that's a data point that we can have as to, the speculation that we're going to lose. Is like, are you willing to go along for the ride, or are we going to do? Because it also gives us a sense of, okay, if you don't move, then what does that mean to the current population at the school that will remain? Is like, if there's a possibility of moving, you're going to go, what does that mean? Because we don't have that. We're speculating that, hey, we're going to lose a huge chunk. And if our effort is in recruiting and retaining, as it has been, then we need to know that.
Thank you. Good question.
And I just think that the survey needs to give parents some options. I mean, I think before the survey goes out, we need to already narrow down the options and not just like a free all solicitation brainstorming type of survey. That won't help much. And I agree with Patty. I think we need to also include a question in there whether they'll stay in the program if the program is relocated. Because when CIPCF conducted survey of our members, that was a question that we asked. we usually ask for grade level, where they're located. We ask them to rank the different options. We ask them for their feedback for each option, like, what do you like about this option? What do you not like about this option? And also whether they will continue with the program if the program is relocated to, option A, option B, option C, option D. That's what we did in our survey.
Thank you. Larry?
You might want to ask in separate from the relocation or the unification, what do parents want to see as improvements in the program? That might be something that starts attracting, especially for the SDI program, if you're trying to attract enrollment. What do parents want to see more of, or more support with, or what have you, to try and build that up, because that's going to be crucial going forward. And it would just be an open-ended question. I don't know if it would show anything, but if it did, it might show something we don't know yet.
Thank you. Okay. So this is good. So I'm gonna end us here. So here, and no, you can still email and all of that, but I want to be cognizant of the time. So here's what I'm going to propose for the next time we meet. And I want to ask Christy if she can take notes. And I know she's been taking notes, and I think Sarah has as well. Thank you, Sarah. For the next time that we meet, I want to be able to bring back a draft survey that will have some blank areas that we can fill in. Back to Brian's point, I think he's right on. We're going to have some options spelled out for families, because we don't, we want them to know and be aware and make an informed, give informed input. So I'll bring that. I will also, just for you all to know, I want to also get input from our board. So I will share that also from our board. And then here at this meeting, we can start to kind of finalize the language. So that would be at the November 2nd meeting. Additionally, it will give us time to really start to look at these reports that Kelly shared with us. And what I'm hoping to do is that if Student Support Services can give us some information about where students live or what their home school is or their home district is, we can send that out to all of you before the November 2nd meeting. We should be able to pull that, because we're not waiting for like an outside person to give us that. That's internal documentation. What we won't have, unfortunately, is the new demographic report. So just know that we won't have it in time for that. But I think it'll be enough information for us to kind of just keep moving forward, try to make some of those steps. And it will also give all of you some time to start to talk to other folks. We've got some really great suggestions on the Padlet that is beyond a survey. So we want to be able to do that as well. And so that's what I see for our November 2nd meeting. Brian.
Can we have, for example, draft survey questions already in advance of the meeting?
Oh, yes. In advance.
In advance of the meeting, because it's much more productive. We can read the question beforehand, think about it, and then be able to provide feedback.
Yeah.
And again, and while you guys are collecting, thinking about options and narrowing down the option and having it, be discussed at this meeting, again, the earlier you can share that information, the better. It's very difficult to read the information at this meeting and then be able to give feedback, instantly.
That's a good point. We will try, and I think there's enough. This last time it was so tight, and I'll be candid. There's a lot of meetings happening and a lot of other things happening. But let me look at the calendar really briefly. Yeah, I mean, the next meeting's November 2nd. We have enough of a cushion of some work time to do that. So yes, we can definitely try to get it out sooner and not at the meeting. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, and before we conclude this meeting, can somebody just go through the capacity report very quickly, just so that I make sure I know how to read it? Is that possible?
I think, why don't I ask Kelly to send an email that I can send out to all of you, just because, and I apologize, I have a hard stop at 7, but I'll ask her if she can. I know there's a legend on there, but it does look a little cumbersome to read. Kelly, would you mind just writing something up briefly that we can send out to the committee that just tells them how to read it?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay, thank you. And we can have that all to you tomorrow if that's possible. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, everyone. Have a great evening. Thank you all. And know that those Padlets are still available. And if there's any other questions, please email me and we'll start to kind of build that and get that out to all of you. So thank you. And thank you, Mr. Zamora, for the tech